Cool. All right. First time using YouTube Live. And thank you for joining in. And what we're going to talk about is the Sabbath. Right? And so, if you were able to download my other message, we talked about Israel and the Gentiles in this battle. And so, you have heaven above, the Father, the Sabbath, and then you have the vine, and then the root system. The root system is the Israelites, salvation coming from the Jews, and then you have the Gentiles. So you have the Jews right here, and then you have the Gentiles, which is everybody else. Okay? I think there's an E up there, but look. I think my grammar is the Gentiles. Okay, so what I want you to really get your gears going on the Sabbath. A lot of people are like, oh, because we know the Sabbath is Sunday, and you have a 7-day Adventist, believe it's Saturday. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to explain to you, that way you can decide what you think about this, okay? And so this is the Old Testament where there's 39 books. This is the New Testament where there's 27 books. And then obviously Christians do believe that the heaven is where the Father sits on the throne, and then you have the Spirit and the Son, right? God sent the Son, and the Son sent the Spirit. And then that's what the fullness of the cross and everything was. So you have Genesis chapter 2. First of all, to know what the Sabbath, about the Sabbath, what is a Sabbath, right? When's the first time that the Bible mentions the Sabbath? Well, that's in Genesis chapter 2, verses 2 to 3. It says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. And the previous 6 days, he made the earth, he made the animals, the mountains, the sea, the birds, the trees. And then on the 6th day, he made man, I believe, right? And yes. And so, by the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all of his work. And then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it, he, God, rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Right? So, and he sets the standards. Right? So you have that, and then the key word is he made it holy. So that's where the word remember started, right? The 7th day, now you know the calendar. If you look at your calendar right now, the 7th day is Saturday. The first day of the week is Sunday, right? And so this is the key. And then we're going to break down this one. And then my argument coming from a debate is a lot of people argue that the Sabbath is done away with, right? And it's on Sunday. And some people say you can honor the Sabbath any day you choose and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of arguments about that. But when I was studying the Bible, Matthew chapter 24, verse 20, this is where I started scratching my head going, wait a minute. Because when chapter 24, the apostles asked him what will be the sign of the coming, and how will we know that this is the end of the time? And during these in red words, he said in verse 20, pray that your flight will not be taken in wintertime or on the Sabbath. Well, what Sabbath is he talking about? Right? And so this is where all the people go crazy. Well, but just hear me out. What Sabbath was he talking about in Matthew chapter 24, verse 20? Was he talking about Genesis, the Sabbath that was in the beginning? Because isn't Jesus the Son of God and the Spirit, God one, the Father and him are one? Right? So you see that. What Sabbath was he talking about? Well, let's break it down. Let's have fun with this. I hope every theologian is watching, right? Because we're we go through. In the book of Genesis, when was the Sabbath? On the seventh day. Did they keep it? Yes. Exodus? Yes. Leviticus? Yes. Numbers? Yes. Deuteronomy? Yep. The book of Joshua? Yep. The book of Judges? Yep. Right? Ruth? Yes. 1 Samuel? 2 Samuel? 1 Kings? 2 Kings? 1 Chronicles? 2 Chronicles? Ezra? Nehemiah? Esther? Job? The Day of Atonement? You have Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Abdiah, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Right? So the ones, like obviously Genesis was written by Moses, a lot of people think. And so God spoke highly over here. Right? And so these people honored it in the Old Testament. Right? And that was also, you have a question where people can go down here to when they were in slavery in Egypt for 400 years, or 450 years. Did they keep the seventh day, right? Maybe, maybe not. But then when Moses brought them out, God brought them to remembrance. Because Deuteronomy actually means second law, and it means to repeat. And so, when you think of that, this followed that. And then the New Testament of the Gentiles, and when they started going into the Gentile world, remember, it transferred. He turned away, and then he went to the Gentiles to make them jealous. But did God leave all this stuff behind? Of course not. So when you look at the Bible, and you say, make sure your flight is not in the winter or on the Sabbath day, it's funny because when you read the book of Matthew, let's go blue here. When you read the book of Matthew, that he followed the Sabbath day. So there's that one. Mark, Sabbath day is mentioned, which is the Saturday. And then you have Luke, Sabbath day. John, Sabbath day. The book of Acts, many times they would say it took a Sabbath day walk, right? Because it's from Friday night till Saturday evening. And then you have Romans. They followed it. 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, the book of James, the 1 Peter, the 2 Peter, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, Jude, and then the book of Revelation. You see, so now I want you to understand, you're going, wait a minute. So all the greats from the Bible, Esther, Malachi, Jonah, Obadiah, King David, King Solomon, King Saul, all of them, all the apostles, all believed in the same Sabbath day. So when you break it down like that, even the Hebrews today, or the Israelites, they honor that too. And so what I want you to see is both illustrations, right? So now we know what the Bible says. It says in the beginning, this is when the Sabbath day was created. And we know that throughout the entire Bible, they all follow the Sabbath day, right? That's why it makes sense, because when I see that question where Jesus said, well, make sure your flight isn't in the winter or on the Sabbath. Well, Jesus was talking to everyone who wrote these books, because this was all inspired by him. So they honored that day. So now we know what the Sabbath is, when did the Sabbath change? See, this was 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 4,000 years. And about the 4,000 year mark is when Jesus died. And then 66 AD is when the temple was destroyed. And that's when Jerusalem really lost its everything. And they became very hardened at that point, scattered among the world. So then this side took over, the Gentiles. And so this was the Old Testament. And if you look at the words too, test, amen. And if it's a lowercase t, it's a cross. Testament. Testament, and then so you have the cross after that, right? So you have the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so when did the Sabbath first change? On March 7th, 321 AD. When and why? On Sunday. Now, first thing I want you to see is the two suns. You have the sun that has S-O-N, and then you have the sun that has S-U-N. Those are two different suns. Now, this is going to be significant, right? And so, who changed the Sabbath? Was it a church member? The answer is no, if you do your research. The Roman Emperor Constantine changed the Sabbath day in 321 AD. And that's where you get John Connor and Zeus and everybody else. Constantine was rolled into everything. And so why did they change it? Well, because they were the world authority. They were able to do so. And that doesn't mean that they were holy, right? Because when you look at, and then this was adopted by the Saxons, the Anglo-Saxons. That's why a lot of people's heritage is Anglo-Saxon, right? And so that was adopted by them, and they carried it over too. But what was the theology of the Emperor Constantine in Rome at the time? Well, if you look it up on Google, the Roman gods are Jupiter, which is Zeus and king of the gods. You have Juno, which is his queen. And then you have Neptune, Minerva, or Minerva, Mars, Venus, Apollo, and Diana. And look, they worship the sun, S-U-N, right? And they even had a temple set up for the sun worship. Not S-O-N, S-U-N, right? And so that is what changed the law. So a lot of you theologians, you just say, but you forget that this happened. And so how does this constitute triumph over that? Because that is a holy book inspired by this. And you're gonna say that God allowed or wanted this person to change the Sabbath day? And so now you have it on Sunday, which is the sun god, right? Zeus. 'Tis the season for Zeus, right? And so when you see these people are not Christians. They believe in the planets, right? That's where you get the terminology ball and the earth, right? Ball. I mean, Jupiter is not really a planet. I don't think the planets are real. I think they're fallen angels. And that's just my opinion. But not Christian. They're not Christians. They're worldly. They believe in false gods. And the question to the church is, was it God's will? Or is it God's will that you follow their following, right? And so, and making equals MAGA, right? So let's go through my notes here. Right? So, we know what is the Sabbath, right? Sabbath literally means to rest from your labor. And then there's a verse in Exodus that says it's appointed for men to labor 6 days and then rest from one. And this is a permanent and universal obligation. It's a cherry on top pretty much. And then we know that the system of Bel and the beast, I believe this is a system, the worldly system that counterfeit that came in. And it tried to confuse everything from above. Right? Because it says in the last day the devil will deceive the entire world. Right? So for that to happen, there's have to be this, you gotta find the staircase of how they've been doing it. And it could be just as simple as S-O-N to S-U-N. Right? And so Sunday was a normal working day too. When you look at the history, they considered it a normal working day, but then they issued a civil decree making Sunday a day of rest. Well, that same spirit of making is right here, because MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. And nothing against Donald Trump personally, let his own salvation be tested by God. But he says, make America Christian again. Make America holy again, right? The key word, make, over here in 321 AD, make Sunday a civil decree. And that's where it just took over planet Earth. So like my argument to theologians that want to argue Sunday to Saturday is, okay, what Sabbath day was Jesus Christ talking about in Matthew 24, verse 20? He had to be talking about this one, because what other Sabbath day was given in the whole Bible? Zero. It was one day, dude. So what is all this? Truth. What is all this? A lie. And then you want us to believe that the Emperor Constantine, who believed and worshipped the sun as a god, not the S-O-N, the literal ball of light. And so this is what adopted that. And then so now all of us are going, oh, that's okay though. No, you gotta wonder if you were deceived, right? And they made Sunday law a day of rest, right? And what's funny about Deuteronomy is when you teach this stuff, even the words of the book of the Bible, like the book Deuteronomy means second law or repeated law. This, where Moses' law came from, it means repeat. That's why God says over and over again, train your young and generation about all this stuff. You know, and you're supposed to cycle it over and over and over again, from here up, anyway. And so, you know, it's also, the word Deuteronomy has the word duet in it, which means two, right? And it's where two people do a performance, a duet. Just like Moses and God were a duet in the desert. It was Moses and the Spirit of the Lord following, right? And so, and you got to wonder too about the gap. You have the gap, there's two gaps in the Bible, where you have, you know, the Egyptian slavery, which was 400 to 450 years, and then you have the book of Malachi to Matthew, which was a 400 year of silence, right? And so during that year, they still honored the Sabbath on Saturday, right? And so this is, you know, my explanation on how I started going, and to leave you with the verse in Exodus chapter 34, verse 21, it says, 6 days thou shalt work, but on the seventh day thou shalt rest. In your work, your plowing time, and also in harvest time thou shalt rest. Right? And so, I know this is a great controversy to a lot of your ears, but, you know, the thing about deception is it's hard, right? You got to think of deception like a line, right? Let's say the deception started right here. And then it went all the way to like here. And in that span is like 400 years. And then all of a sudden, the truth showed up right here. I believe most of the time only a remnant are going to want to know the truth. Because in order for that remnant to wake up, you have to be standing on this side. So like me, I'm 36 years old. I have to look 36 years back at my life and go, was everything I taught a lie built off of Jupiter, Zeus, and this falseness? And then you got to go, dude, because we all think we're smart, we all study, like especially if you've already been going to church. A lot of Sunday believers do not, and most of them will not ever want to go, dude, I didn't want to. I've been back and forth with this stuff. But now I made the solid decision from doing my homework that I know this. This is what I believe. Because I think the Sabbath day he was saying right here is that Sabbath day. And then I went, because that's what all of these people follow. So technically I'm like, wait a minute. This makes sense, dude. The deception. And now I have to look back and go, Lord, correct me from these 36 years of falsehood, of lies, of Zeus deception, sun god. You know, because look, this section is pure truth. And if all the people in this Bible followed that day and remembered it to be holy, which is a commandment, one of the commandments is honor the Sabbath day and remember it and keep it holy. And a lot of us will go, well, Jesus has done away with that. No, he didn't, because in every book of the New Testament, they all followed the Sabbath. So who am I going to listen to? You guys? Or am I going to just go, you might want to follow the day in which every character of God's team on the Bible followed, which was that day right there. We're the ones who changed it. See, we are the ones who in 321 AD, that's the first time the seventh day went to what? The first day of the then somehow the devil, I believe, has got a bulk of the Christians to just interpret scriptures wrong, and now they're sunken into this. But I think a lot of them are going to come out of it once they make Sunday a, And by the way, the sign of Zeus is the trident, and you have McDonald's, so you have the McDonald's sign is like this, and if you put a line in it, it's a pitchfork. So you have the devil's pitchfork, right? And so I want you all to be free. That's why this is truth. How could I be trying to deceive you by all this? Why would I take the time to do this to try to deceive you? You see, it wouldn't make any sense, right? So the Sunday is the reason they changed it, because it's Sunday, Sunday. Because they know there's going to be an Antichrist and things that come up, and it's going to be resembling of the sun, right? And so that's why you have to make a decision today on what you follow. What do you believe the Sabbath day is? After all this explanation, you have to make a decision, not me. I've already made this decision. I believe that he was talking about Sabbath, and I believe that I already go, well, what is the Sabbath? Well, it's the day when God rested. We're supposed to inherit and adopt what the Father does, because, the Father, the Son, the Spirit, and the root. This is the whole root system, right, of the perfection, In Exodus, 6 days a week you work, 1 day you rest. Right? It says 1 day you rest. And of course, you don't expect the world to follow it, but this is what happened. And you guys, Constantine, Connor, you have John Connor from the Terminator movies, John Connor. They adopted all this con crap, all this Neo stuff from the Connor system. That's all traveling back to Constantine. That's why Keanu Reeves is in a movie called Constantine. You see? But this is where the deception, I think, started. That 1,000-year deception plan, everything that was going, and now we're trying to go back and unwind it. Because there's going to be truth that comes out in the day of measurement and atonement and wrath. Because how can God judge the whole world if the whole world hasn't heard the gospel of the truth? There is a huge revealing of the truth on everything, inside and out. So when you see Constantine, John Connor, Sunday, Zeus, and I'm literally living the dream when it comes to this character. I'm in a place where I have to battle that spirit. And so, and these messages have been coming into my consciousness to speak on. And so I wanted to share this with you all. And it's kind of funny, the New Testament is New Test Amen. It's the testament. And then you have the lowercase t at the end. It's the cross. Everything revolves around the S-O-N, the Son. And I want you all to really pause for a minute. Don't call your church. Seek out your own answers of salvation through fear and trembling, and then ask your pastor. Go look through this yourself and see if you think the other thing. But I guarantee you, if you do your homework, this and this, OT and NT, follow it and remember that, because it was never changed. So thank you for tuning in, and next time we're going to do a message on probably old spirits or gossiping, and we'll think of something. I got a lot of things I got to do. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in.